Today we are working on upcycled glass jars. Really affordable, they make amazing gifts, and I'm going to start with showing you the end product. So this is what I'm creating today. I'm just using my graphics that I've designed. All my graphics that I'm using today are in my Etsy store. I've got a whole bunch here printed out so I can show you what I've got in there, but I've got all kinds. And how I paint my glass jars, how I do the transfers, because painting glass sometimes can be really tricky if you're not using the right product. So I've kind of mastered the process of painting glass, that I have no problems at all with it ever coming off or scratching off. Once I get this paint on this glass jar, it's not going anywhere. And I'm going to show you today how I do that. First step, don't ever throw out any glass jars. I save all of mine. I never let them go into the recycling bin. I always have a whole pile of them in my shed, and I just work away as I have time and upcycle them. When I first started doing these, I was painting my glass jars with chalk paint first coat. And it worked okay, and it worked pretty good, but I found I got lots of streaks, and it was a little bit, sometimes it was a little bit hard to get it to cover well, and it still sometimes would scratch off a little bit. I solved that problem. So what I do now is I just get my glass jar, I take it out to my shed, and I spray it just really lightly with a white spray paint, a primer and spray paint, Rust-Oleum, any kind will work, it doesn't matter. And just give it a real light spritz, just so it covers. And you can see, once you get that on that glass, that spray paint is not scratching off at all. It gives you a fantastic base for painting glass. You don't have to coat it all the way so it's completely covered in white, because after this is dried, then we're going to do the chalk paint on top of that. I clean them with hot soapy water. I like to use Dawn. And sometimes if I'm using like pickle jars and stuff like that, they have a little bit of a smell inside that's hard to get rid of, salsa. I'll put some bleach in the sink also, and that helps get rid of that smell too. And usually they come out nice and fresh and clean. So you want them, yes, very, very clean, and dried really well before you spray paint them. I have a full tutorial on how to get labels off of glass. It can be really tricky. Some you can soak in water and the label just soaks right off, no problem. Sometimes it's a bugger and you have to take a knife and scrape them. But what I have found to be the easiest, I put all of my glass jars into hot soapy water. I find Dawn works best. Let them soak. And then if the labels have kind of floated off and you've just got some glue residue left on, the thing that I found worked the best is steel wool or an SOS pad. I'll just take the SOS pad and rub it over where the label was or where it's a little bit sticky, and it usually cleans it up really, really well. But I'll put a link down below in the description, because I did do a full tutorial with about 7 or 8 different methods of what worked and what didn't work, and it's chock right full of information. I've got some of my homemade chalk paint made up already, and these are both ready for first coat. I already painted the bottoms of them, so when I paint them I can flip them upside down. But I just get my chalk paint and just put a real good coat over the whole glass bottle. And it's going to look streaky. It's going to look not very nice first coat, so don't panic. And I only use chalk paint. I have tried latex. I've tried acrylic. I've tried every type of paint to paint on glass, and I never have any success. I always have the best success with my homemade chalk paint or any type of chalk paint. And that's from experience. I do hundreds and hundreds of these jars, so I've done all the trials. Okay, so we have our first coat on that one. Okay, we'll just do this one. And you can see by having that light coat of spray paint on that glass jar, that chalk paint just adheres to it like crazy. One full coat on it. What we're going to do now, I'm going to set these up here. I have 2 jars that have 1 full coat on, And I'm going to show you what I do for my next coat. We're going to put away the paintbrush. We're not going to use the paintbrush for the last coat. I'm going to use just a little piece of sponge. And what I like to do, because you can, one of the biggest complaints that I found with people trying to paint on glass is the brush streaks. So this is a perfect way to get rid of those brush streaks. I just use a little sponge and just dab it on. And as you're dabbing, I'll just bring you up a little bit closer so you can see. See how well that's coating? And it's covering it really, really well. And I don't even have that much paint on my sponge, but that will eliminate all of your brush marks and give you a nice smooth finish. Okay, so that is it. And you can see the one coat of spray paint, just a light coat. Second coat of a painted on chalk paint, and then the third coat is just sponged on. And it's just a nice smooth painted jar. Okay. And if you've never made homemade chalk paint, I have a fantastic recipe in my playlist. It's foolproof. I never have any problems with it whatsoever. I don't make up great big batches of it because I find the shelf life isn't fantastic. It can maybe last about a week, but after that I find that it starts to get dry and clumps up. So if you are making the recipe, just make a batch that you know you're going to be able to use up within the week. And you can also make colored chalk paint. I really like going to our Home Depot and buying the little tester containers of paint that you can get your custom color that you want. I think they're around $5, and then you can make up your colored chalk paint. That's really simple with the exact same recipe. Okay, and that's it. This is covered. Fantastic. So I have 3 jars all finished, ready for graphics. I stuck the graphics inside of them. I have, my Etsy store is right full of graphics, all kinds of different ones. And when you're getting the graphics, you're going to get a whole bunch of files. And when I'm doing my Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer, you have to make sure that your graphic is reversed. So when you get them out of my Etsy store, one of the files is already reversed. So you can download them, use them right away on your projects. Oh, the one thing that I should do before I clean everything up is I like to take the sponge after I've painted it and just dab it along the rim, and it just gives a nice finished look. And then you don't have that glass showing through on the top. A lot of my graphics have an SVG file that is compatible with the Cricut design space. So yes, you can. And this technique, the Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer, it's a method that I prefer using to do on my projects, but you can definitely cut these graphics out of vinyl. I would use a permanent vinyl and put them on your jars too. That's another option. I'm always trying to find a cheaper way of doing stuff though, and I find this is more cost efficient for me than having to use the vinyl and do these jars. Okay, so some of the graphics. Merry Christmas. Love this one. You're never too old to search the skies on Christmas Eve. That's a really cute one. Believe in the magic of Christmas. In a world full of Grinches, be a Cindy Lou Who. My favorite Christmas movie of all time, Grinch. Love that. There's another Grinch one. In a world full of Grinches, be a Griswold. Hot chocolate served here. Actually did a full hot chocolate basket for a gift idea. I did it right from start to finish, and I did a little sign for my basket with this, and it turned out adorable. So make sure you watch for that video. And I use this one too, this hot chocolate one. I put it on some mugs. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. As you can see, this is not only about half of the graphics that I have in my store. This is one of my favorite ones. North Pole Milk and Cookie Company. This one looks really great on a cookie canister. If you can find a great big glass jar, it looks really cute on it. And then you can fill the container with cookies and keep the lid and put the lid on it. This is actually one of, I make these into signs a lot or into jars, and you can put some nice greenery in. Snowflakes are kisses from heaven. And that's really nice if you can make one of these up and give it to somebody that's had lost a loved one. over the course of the year. And this one's a really cute one that I made up. It's what the name, all the reindeers, and it's what their names actually mean. And I thought I did this one up, and I think I'm going to do it on a big piece of barn board, and it'll look really cute. So all these are just a little bit of what's available in my Etsy store, but if you want to go over and have a look at all those, I'll put the link down in the description after this airs to check out that Etsy store. Okay. So Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer. I like to use Mod Podge matte. You can use gloss, but just know when you're using the gloss, you're going to have a glossy finish where your graphic was. If you're just using matte, it's going to blend into the chalk paint better. This is what I use all the time. Another little trick I like to do is my lint roller. I just put the lint roller, stick it to the table, and then if you push your jar up to it, it's not going to roll around, and then you can put your graphic on easier. So I've already sized these graphics up. I've put them into my Word program, sized them for each jar, and then printed them off on my LaserJet printer. LaserJets work better, but you can use an inkjet. Everybody's inkjets, though, are a little bit different. Some work better than others, so it might just be something that you have to test to see how your printer works for this technique. But if you have a LaserJet printer, you're golden. I actually am quite new to the whole Cricut world, and I love it. The things that you can do with it is fantastic. I love making my t-shirts and my mugs, but there is a lot of waste, so I try to be always mindful when I am using it. If I can use a different technique that's not going to create as much waste, always do. But I love my t-shirt graphics, and I think this is adorable. Okay, I got just a light coat of Mod Podge on this graphic, and I'm going to center it on my jar. You don't want to put too much Mod Podge on, because I've had some girls and guys that have asked questions, and they say after they do this technique they can see the outline of where all the Mod Podge is. What you've probably done is you've put too much on, and then it creates a ridge around the graphic. If you're just putting a light coat, you don't need very much. If you're just putting a light coat, that will eliminate a lot of that ridge. So I've just rubbed this, make sure you get all the bubbles and wrinkles out of it, and that's it. Set it aside. Don't touch it till tomorrow. Let it dry really, really well, and then you're going to rub that graphic off. So I have a couple more that I'm going to do here and just show you. Just going to put a light coat again on that graphic, right to the edge. I picked a pretty aggressive paintbrush. I could have probably gotten a smaller one, and I'm always sloppy. Of course, I should have something under my table too, but okay, and I'm having a hard time finding the center of this one. I think it's right here. Okay. Press it down. Get all the bubbles and wrinkles out of it. So I've started up a newsletter. So if you're interested in that, I'll put the link down below in the description. I'm going to do a weekly newsletter. There'll always be a free graphic in it, and I'll do a weekly roundup of the videos that I've made and some other tips and tricks. So it's going to be a fantastic newsletter. So if you have a chance, I'd love for you to join me over there and also get your free graphics. This is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I love the shape of this one. I think this was actually a mayonnaise jar, but I love the beveled look to it. So that's why I picked a little bit of a longer graphic for this one, because I think it's going to look really nice on it. And if you have any questions about what I'm doing, just ask away and I'll try to help you out. And I love when you guys leave comments on my videos and ask questions. I try myself to answer every one of them. First thing in the morning every day, I spend about a half an hour going through all of my comments on my videos and answering them all the best I can if you've asked any questions. So this is actually a really good example of having to do this technique on a beveled surface. Because this graphic is, or because this bottle is kind of beveled, you want to form that paper right into that bevel and push it down and get it to lay really flat. And sometimes I find if I just let it set for a minute, I'll get it all pressed down, and then let it sit for a minute and then go back and press it again, then you can form it right into the bottle or the jar. If you don't, you're going to have your graphics not adhere properly onto that beveled surface. Okay, I'm going to let this set for a minute, and then I'm going to reform that again. So I have 2 jars that are already finished that I did up yesterday. I'm going to show you how I rub off the graphic. Now this is not the only way that you can make these jars. It's just my preferred method of doing them. I think they look the best, but you can use this method. You can use your Cricut and do a permanent vinyl. You can do the water technique, which is you can print off your graphics onto a napkin and then decoupage it onto your jar, or you can just print it out just normal on a piece of paper like this, cut it to size, and decoupage it right onto the jar. Sometimes doing that method doesn't really blend in quite as well, but it still looks really cute. And if you want to use normal paper and just decoupage it on, I have a little trick, and I don't know if you guys have seen it. I have a video of how to decoupage with thick paper with packing tape. And you're removing some of the paper off the back of the surface, and it just makes your paper more pliable and just lay better when you're working with it. Okay, so I've just taken my little rag, I've just dampened it so you can just start to see the graphics show through. This one is In a World Full of Grinches via Cindy Lou Who. And then I like to start with my rag, just kind of start from the middle and work out, and just take the top bulk of the paper off. And then I'll go back in with my fingers afterwards and take off the rest of the paper. If you've never tried this technique, it does take a little bit of practice. Don't think you're going to sit down, and if it does work for you the very first time, count yourself lucky, because it can be a little bit tricky and it takes a little bit of a knack to get used to how much water to put on, how much to rub it. And so don't give up if you do it the first time and it doesn't work for you, because the second time it might work perfect. And you don't have to do these just on graphics. You can also print off pictures. Again, with the LaserJet printer works the best. You can try your inkjet printer, but it can be a little bit more tricky. But you can do graphics, you can do photos. So that's why I love doing these for Christmas, because you can customize them so much. Okay. So I've got the main bulk of the top off, and then I just take my finger and just gently just rub. I've kind of gotten so this is kind of therapeutic for me. I just find that it's kind of relaxing. I just take my time and just rub that paper off. But once I have these all finished, I like just to go out and cut a little bit of greenery in our backyard and just add them to these jars, put a little ribbon on them, and they look really cute. That one, all the paper is off, and it looks really cute. I'm going to set that aside. We'll finish it off in a minute, but I'm going to finish, whoops, which one is it? This one here. And we'll finish this one. This one, again, has been sitting since yesterday, and it's all dried. If you guys aren't familiar with how to size these graphics, I also have a tutorial on how to size them. I size all of mine in my Word program. Also do it in Google Docs. It works really well there too. And you can size up exactly to the project the size of the project that you need. I find these graphics do not work well at all on latex paint or acrylic paint. I have the best results with a chalk paint, and they do not work well at all on a bare surface. So if you're trying to do these on just a plain piece of wood, it's going to be a bugger for you. It's going to be really hard to get all that paper off without rubbing it off completely. So if you want to save yourself a little bit of time, make sure your project is painted with chalk paint. And if you find that it needs a little bit of extra water, you can always dip your little cloth or your finger right back into the water and just work away at it a bit. And always I always have a little tiny bit of the graphic that kind of rubs off here and there. This is not going to look like a Cricut sticker. This is very rustic. This is very not perfect at all. And I'm just taking my finger and just gently just rubbing off all that paper. And you can feel the paper underneath your finger of when it's all gone. Now this graphic is almost completely dry, and I can feel that paper kind of rolling up underneath, and I can feel when it's all gone. And that one's all finished. I'll just show you up close so you can see. And that's so cute. I do not like using Mod Podge as a top coat. That is just my preference though. I prefer to use a polyacrylic sealer in a matte finish. And you want to make sure that it's water-based. If you're buying an oil-based varathane or sealer, it will yellow on you. You want to make sure you get a polyacrylic water-based sealer in a clear finish. I prefer to use a satin, but I do switch back and forth sometimes between a satin and a gloss. It just depends on the project. And I'll just use this brush here. I just use a paintbrush, and you just paint it all around to seal it up. And I like to put a good coat of it on. I find using the Mod Podge, it kind of gives, I just don't like the look of it. It kind of gives it a cloudy look, and it's thick, where I find this is really durable. You can wipe it with a damp cloth if you want to, if you've got it out as decor and you need to dust it. I find when you wet the Mod Podge, if you're dusting it or with a damp cloth, it sometimes will revert back to being tacky again, and I don't like that. I just like, and this is just my preference, I just like this as a top coat. And then put a little on the bottom, and that's it to seal it up. And this dries really quickly. I'm just going to put it on the paper here. Now this one that was beveled that I said I had a hard time that I was going to go back to, it sat for a few minutes, and I'm just going to go back and just press in those little pieces so I know that that's kind of formed around that bottle. And this actually looks really good. It's going to be fine. So set that one back. A little coat on the bottom. You want to make sure that you seal up the bottom really well too, because these are going to be sitting on a counter, and you want them to be really protected. And then set them upside down. I'm running out of room. And then just let them dry. So to finish them off, I'll just show you this one. I have, like I said, I love to fill them up with greenery, fresh greenery. You can keep the lids, fill them up with treats, and give them as gifts. They make fantastic gifts. So this is something that was what I love to do. When I go to the thrift store, I always look for like old flannel shirts or pajama bottoms, and they come in all these fantastic plaid and all the different colors, Christmas colors. And this was actually a pair of pajama bottoms, and I've cut them all up into ribbon. As soon as I get home, throw them in the washing machine, wash them really well, dry them, and then I cut them up and make them into ribbon. And it's so affordable, and so many different colors that you can get. And that's what I did with this one. I just cut a little piece and tied it on the top of the bottle. And you can also just use twine. If you're going to use the lid, you want to use something that's going to be smaller so your lid can screw on. So next time you're at the thrift store, look for some old flannel pajamas or flannel shirts that maybe have stains or rips, or ones that you have around the house, because they make adorable little ribbons for all of your Christmas projects. Let's see, you just tie it on, and it looks really cute. I think I have everything all done, and I hope I've been able to give you a really good step-by-step instructions on how to do these. And the big thing is just learning how to paint glass properly so it stays on your glass. So you're going to do your spray paint. You're going to do one coat of brushed on chalk paint. Then you're going to sponge on your last coat of your chalk paint. And you're letting each of these dry completely in between. Last coat, you're going to sponge on your last coat. And then you can pick whatever method you want to do your transfers or your decoupage on your jars, and then just seal them up with a polyacrylic sealer. And you basically have a gift idea for free out of the recycling bin, and they're adorable. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.